I'm filling in for Alex. It's Paul Joseph Watson. Alex is working on his upcoming documentary film. And we're talking about the BP oil spill. We'll be taking some of your calls in the next segment. Now, we were talking about this grandstanding that's going on with Obama preparing to, quote, kick ass and root out the culprits that were behind making the, quote, mistakes that led to the oil spill. Now BBC is reporting US tests confirm big underwater oil plumes. Tests have shown that underwater oil plumes are travelling dozens of miles from a leaking well in the Gulf of Mexico, the US government says. And it makes reference to this interview with NBC News that Obama did, in which he said he would have fired British Petroleum CEO Tony Hayward over the remarks he's made about the crisis, which, as I said before the break, is a complete misnomer. This idea that Obama is cracking down on BP is completely a fraud. It's a sideshow, because Tony Hayward, Peter Sutherland, and the other people involved at the top with BP are all top Bilderberg attendees, as was Obama in 2008. There's no fight between these people. It's ridiculous to even suggest it, which is why for the first 3 or 4 weeks of the crisis, Obama was too busy taking 2 vacations and playing basketball to even care about what was going on. I mean, you know, Nero fiddled while Rome burned. That's exactly what Obama did, because they only benefit from this crisis becoming bigger and bigger, because it jives directly with their agenda for a carbon tax, a consumption tax, a gas tax, which will be made all the more easier if they're able to nationalize the oil companies, which is what the Democrats and Obama have stated is their ultimate agenda. So we're going to take calls on that after the break and get your take on what's going on with the BP oil spill. As I mentioned, prisonplanet.com, in the last hour and a half, we posted a big article on this listing all the evidence suggesting that not only was there foreknowledge with all these top CEOs dumping their stocks, Goldman Sachs dumping their stocks right before the crisis occurred, but there is actually evidence of deliberate tampering with the very systems that are supposed to prevent this kind of disaster. In BP's own official investigative report on page 37, it says that the hydraulic systems were undocumented. There were undocumented alterations with the hydraulic systems before the explosion. Also in the next segment, we're going to get into, just briefly because we're going to take calls mainly, but how top historians and analysts are now forecasting, and this ties into the carbon tax post-industrial revolution agenda that the globalists are pushing, how top analysts are forecasting an age of rage, and how the austerity measures that you've seen in Greece, you've seen the reaction to them in Greece, the media don't really tell you what those austerity measures are, have provoked chaos, violence, and even deaths. Now, those scenes are coming to the United States. They're coming to other countries in Europe. But what exactly are these austerity measures that the Greeks are so up in arms about? We're going to get into that, and we're going to break down how, if you thought the scenes that we saw unfold in Greece were bad, wait until what's going to happen, not only in the UK, but later on down the line in America, when these same kind of fascist austerity measures, which basically amount to nothing more than a massive lowering of living standards in line with the, quote, post-industrial revolution that the globalists want to force upon the population of the West, you're going to see really how in jeopardy your pensions, your savings, people on welfare, you're going to see how much in jeopardy all these things are with the austerity measures that governments are planning to impose within the next year or two in Europe, and certainly America's going to follow, not for a while. Obviously they're saying 7 to 10 years, America will be on a par with Greece. I think it's going to come into play before that, but certainly Europe will be the first to suffer these consequences of this fiscal fascism from the financial terrorists that caused the crisis in the first place. But after the break, we're going to take your calls on this and the BP oil spill. Stay tuned. This is the Alex Jones Show. I'm Paul Joseph.
We took a little trip along with Colonel Jackson down the mighty Mississippi. We took a little bacon and we took a little beans, and we caught the bloody British in a town in New Orleans. We fired our guns and the British kept a-coming. There wasn't as many as there was a while ago.
It's the Alex Jones Show. That's right, the British kept a-coming. I'm Paul Joseph Watson, filling in this final hour for Alex Jones, who's working on his documentary film. Now, we're talking about a BP oil spill and how the evidence now suggests that not only was there foreknowledge of the event, but that there may even have been tampering with the equipment that caused the oil spill, the explosion itself. We're also going to get into the wider aspects of this post-industrial revolution that the globalists are trying to impose on the free people, specifically in the Western world. But now we're going to take some of your calls. I want to talk about the BP oil spill. I want to talk about Bilderberg, the austerity fascism that's coming. And our first caller is Donna in New Hampshire. Donna, you are on the air.
Hi, Paul. You're doing a wonderful job. I just wanted to kind of touch base with, first of all, my husband is down in the Gulf. He's been down there ever since all of this started uprising. And he has been at ground zero. And he said the oil, when you go 5 miles west or 5 miles east, you didn't see anything all the way up to the shore. And, you know, I really think this has been my take on it from the very beginning, that BP BP is falling on their sword. They're falling on their sword for the New World Order to implement the carbon taxes and get all this, because Obama came in and said that there's going to be no more drilling, which would put my husband out of business, along with the fact that there's no fishing being done. That's ruining a $1 billion industry right there. What better way to shut down everything and collapse our economy but to come in and make this look bigger than it is? The media has been throwing this completely out of whack, and the fact that BP wouldn't even let most of mainstream media even in and around the area is telling to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, as soon as this happened, you had people like Mark Levine questioning why Obama was sending SWAT teams there, and saying that basically, as you said, this represents completely the wrong response to how this should be handled. You mentioned the fishing that's been devastated, and it has. And we know that the government, the federal government, the globalists do indeed have this agenda to shut down the oil industry. That's what they talk about. That's what Barroso, the EU Commission head, talks about on a regular basis. That's what the post-industrial revolution is. It's about shutting down industry and turning our economy into this green economy, which is a complete disaster because it costs 2.2 jobs for every job created. So they want to lower living standards, they want more unemployment, and letting this crisis rumble on as it has done is the perfect entree to achieving that. And I thank you for your call. We're going to move on now to Bill in Connecticut. Bill, you're on the air.
How you doing, Paul?
All right, Bill, how are you?
Real good, real good. Hey, just wanted to point out that today on MSNBC, Obama is sitting there saying that he's going to fire the president of British Petroleum for his muffing up the job. And I find it very funny because didn't the U.S. government say that they were in charge of the job? And if that's true, then isn't Obama firing himself?
Well, that's right. As I said in the last segment, Obama and BP are on arm in arm. They're hand in hand. They're both luminaries of the Bilderberg Group. Now, the idea of Obama being able to fire somebody in a private corporation is, of course, completely fascist. They tried to have that included in the TARP package. In fact, I think they did have language which indicated that Obama would be allowed to fire CEOs of corporations, which, of course, is completely undemocratic. It's completely anti-business, and it's not something that's ever happened before in a free America. But yeah, it's a Punch and Judy sideshow. Obama's not going to go after BP. He's not going to kick any ass. He's on the same team as them, and both Obama politically and BP are taking one for the team, and they're allowing this to get worse and worse so they can later exploit the crisis.